So let's get started. So here is the first movement, which starts with the four corners of the hip and the shoulders. So what you're going to see me do is to start to increase the pressure on the back of my shoulder. So let's start with your left shoulder and to just feel how your back is against the floor, and that left shoulder blade in particular. And then feeling into that left shoulder and how it contacts the floor, see what you have to activate to start to increase the feel of pressure, as if you're increasing the sensation of your contact into the floor. And to just notice how your body wants to ease into that. You're going to initially notice all kinds of habits and tensions, and just to start to find a pathway that allows you to ease into that pressure, just gently explore that increase of sensations in your contact with the floor, and then to just gradually ease back out of that. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my right shoulder, so you won't be able to see this as well because it's going to be hidden by the camera or by my body. But just to start to find how your shoulder comes to the floor, and then to gradually increase that sense of contact with the floor, and to start to feel how your shoulder blade can emphasize its sense of contact with the floor. And then to gradually ease back out of that again. Now let's try doing the same thing with the lower body. So to get the best feel of that, what I'm going to suggest is you start by doing that with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor, just like this. Let your body kind of readjust to that. Often it helps, for example, that it helps your lower back to flatten into the floor. And then, once you've got the feel of that, we're going to start to emphasize that sense of connection into the floor with one hip. And we're going to do it in two ways. I'm going to show you a first way, which is to just bring your knees a little bit close together so that you have a fairly kind of rocky, unstable ability with your knees to go back and forth. And then watch what happens if you just bring both knees a little bit across, and you'll notice that it starts to ease the pressure off, in this case the right hip. As you start to bring the knees across to the left, it brings the pressure more into the left side of your pelvis. Now you don't want to go too far with this. Some of you are very flexible, could probably just drop your knees and legs right across to the floor, but we want to just go about as far that the pressure comes very close to kind of that dimple at the back of your butt, but no further. So it's a much more subtle, kind of bringing the weight across. And just feeling into the surface of the floor, getting that sense of connection, and then slowly bringing your knees back to center. And then you can do, of course, the same thing coming across to the right, just letting the knees fall across a little bit to the right. Feel how that brings increase of pressure into the floor, and just feel how that gets a sense of increased sensation as well, so that you're really trying to locate that sense of connection into the floor. And then gradually finding a path back to center again. So that's the first way of connecting with the floor. The second one is to take the feel of your foot on the floor, and we'll start with the left foot, and see if you can get the feel of starting to bring your leg up into gravity. So this is a very minimalist movement. So watch what happens as I start to take this left foot and leg up into gravity a little bit, and how it just starts to create a little bit of a transfer of my weight across to the left pelvis. And you can see how the knees start to fall across just a little bit in a mimicking of the knees both going together, but this time it's with the initiative coming from taking this left leg up into gravity a bit so that the foot doesn't even leave the floor. And then as I let the foot come back down onto the floor, there's a movement back to center again. And so you can do, of course, the same thing on the right side. Just start to take that foot a little bit up into gravity, and as the pelvis starts to take up more of the load, the pelvis is going to rock a little bit across to the side, and so you get that same feel of the knees starting to fall across toward the right side this time. And then come back to center. So give yourself a chance to just kind of take in a bit of the feel of anything that might have been starting to readjust with these little movements. Your body's gradually starting to awaken to its potentials. So those are the two ways that you can get the body to kind of start moving across to one hip or the other by rocking, letting the knees fall across together, or by starting with the initiative of taking one foot and leg up into gravity a bit so that the floor isn't carrying it as much as if you were about to lift it up into space, and then releasing it, and then eventually going across to the other side and doing the same thing. And you'll get a more minimalist carrying of the knees across to one side and the other. So finally, you can take those points of your two hips and your two shoulders, and you can work with them in separate ways. So you can take this into working with the different hip and shoulder contacts alternately as well. So for example, I could start with the left hip and just start to take this leg a little bit up into gravity so that it starts to get that feel of contact in that back of that left hip. And then at the same time, I could get the right shoulder blade to start to feel a little bit more contact by just increasing its pressure into the floor as well. And then I could ease both of them off. And of course, the same thing can happen with the right hip starting to come into the floor a little bit more, and then increasing the pressure of the left shoulder blade and just feeling those two pressures go into the floor. You can also do variations on this one by getting alternates of going up away from the connection by taking your arms. You can also do this in alternates by taking your arms up into the air, and instead of pressing down, you can start to bring this whole arm up into gravity and take the pressure off a little bit of that shoulder, and you could push down with the right shoulder a little bit, and you'll start to notice that you get quite a nice alternative of pressure, not just in the shoulders, but that you might see that my knees start to fall across, so I can kind of start playing with the pressure going into the right shoulder, lifting out of the left shoulder, but increasing into the left hip as my knees come across to the left. So you can start to play with alternatives like that. Now here I've got my left shoulder blade going further into the floor, my right shoulder blade extending out toward the ceiling and through my arm, and the pelvis coming across towards the right, and then just slowly easing back out again.